What is up everybody, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your first time. Today we are discussing how to stack at Maiden within the Theater of Blood. Stacking is simply combining the 70s and 50s crabs in order to more efficiently complete Maiden. This will be a basic guide covering the fundamentals and serve as a stepping stone to more advanced methods. I will cover each role in depth as well as provide an example run. As always, don't hesitate to comment on any questions you have. Let's get into it. First and foremost, a team needs to decide on who is speccing. Optimal defense reduction is 1 Elder Maul into 2 Ralos special attacks. If a team doesn't have a Ralos, have 2 players Elder Maul into both majors BGSing to below 25 defense. In most scenarios, a melee DPS will Elder Maul with either of the mages using the Ralos. As long as the defense is 0 or close to it, you are good to go. Coordinate this with your team and consider who will back up if specs miss. An important note on special attacks is the melee DPS role needs to have at least 50% spec in order to Din's Bulwark spec during the stacking phase. Let's talk about each role, beginning with North Mage. In order to stack properly, the North Mage should be T-boing for max range. This causes a delayed hit due to the travel time of arrows instead of an instantaneous hit from a scythe, which is advantageous in stacking and skipping. At around 76 to 78%, you need to prepare to catch 70s North 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you are late to freezing North 1, South Mage will need to cover. I will discuss this later. After 70s, depending on Maiden's HP, the North Mage will either send 1 T-bow shot or immediately prepare to freeze 50s. Just like 70s, they are responsible for catching North 1, 2, 3, and 4. After this, get back on Maiden and play for the skip, using remaining specs, if any, to skip 30s. South Mage has a bit more of a complex role. Similar to North Mage, they will be using a T-bow at max distance. They are responsible for freezing S1 and S2 into the clump, as well as covering for North Mage. Notice how I check where North 1 is frozen. This will allow you to determine if you need to back up. If North Mage is tick perfect, get back on Maiden immediately and push for 50s. You can greed T-bow slightly because you aren't required to be tick perfect. I aim for 55% before equipping my mage gear. Freeze S1 and S2 once again, delaying at minimum 1 tick to ensure S2 is part of the clump. Once again, check N1, back up if needed. If not, scythe the bottom frozen crab and clean up until they are low HP, returning to T-bowing at max range and continue Maiden playing for the skip. Finally, let's quickly discuss scuffed spawns when maging. Simply put, find ways to utilize ticks rather than waiting for crabs. In 4s, 2 crabs won't spawn. This allows extra ticks to be filled, which can be used to freeze the clump or extra T-bow shots. Because this is a basic guide, I'm not going to dive into the weeds of it, but I will link a Discord with the optimal procedure. Next, let's talk about the melee role. Start with your entry T-bow shot into a possible Elder Maul. If you are not speccing, Scythe Maiden. Use your Thrall and Tank Venges off prayer if you are comfortable doing so. I highly recommend you learn to flick your range gear to prevent stat drain, but bringing an additional super combat is also an option. Once 70s spawn, you are going to stay on Maiden and push for 50s. At this time, claw Maiden if you did not Elder Maul at the beginning and continue to Scythe Maiden until 50s spawn. Following the 50s proc, scythe the N1 stack, remembering to attack the bottom option. Next, run to the Din's Bulwark tile and spec. The Din's Bulwark spec will hit the clump, the N2 stack, and sometimes the N1 stack if they unfreeze at the right time. This will clean up the crabs nicely, but scythe any remaining crabs above 20 HP. Get back on Maiden and play for the skip. Lastly, let's cover the Ranger. Start with your T-bow entry shot into a possible Elder Maul. Spawn your Thrall if you have them, and rotate between east and south in order to tank Venges. Once 70 spawn, either Claw, Double Claw, or ZCB spec to push for 50s. After 50 spawn, send 1 scythe hit into the S1 clump and swap to your block chins. Remember to stand 4 to 6 tiles away and set your attack option to medium fuse. This is required for the most DPS possible. After the clump is cleared out, do a T-bow shot into your melee switch to ensure no ticks lost whilst outputting comparable damage to the scythe. Finish Maiden as usual, playing for the skip. Like I said, this is not a comprehensive stacking guide. I left out details on purpose to simplify the process. If you are sending weedy raids, going for GM top times, or just want to start stacking with the homies, this guide will take care of those needs. Good luck out there, and thanks for watching.